Hello, welcome to part 2 of my official Pixar movie ranking. You might be saying, part 2, I thought this was the top 10. Well, yes, this is the top 10, because part 1 is already up on my channel. It's numbers 24 through 11, and if you want to see my opinions and ranking of all the other movies, go and watch that right now. If you already have watched it, welcome to the top 10 of my Pixar movie ranking. Enjoy. Number 10. Finding Dory. This movie tells the story of Dory and her past and also her future. The story of this movie, just like Finding Nemo, is so amazing. It's funny, it's exciting, it's touching and emotional, and just really everything you'd ever want in a movie. Throughout the film, we meet all these different animals and it tells their story. It shows that no matter who you are, what you look like, you are still you. Whether you have 7 tentacles, bad vision, a head injury, short-term memory loss, it doesn't matter because those things don't define you. What defines you is you. All those different characters are also so charming. Hank, I loved his character. He's so excellently written. Ellen puts on an amazing performance. Marlon's personal journey was really nice to watch, and everything about this movie is just really fun. I think a great part about this movie was that pretty much every scene mattered, whether it was to tell a story or deliver the message. I think this movie was so amazing, and even though it's one of the most forgettable Pixar films, it's one of the best. Number 9. Finding Nemo. I think out of the top 10 movies here, this movie probably shows the message the least. The message is still there, but not as profound as others. The thing is, there doesn't have to be a message. Not all of these movies have to be groundbreaking or have this crazy message that really touches you. This is just a good story. Despite this movie not really playing into the message as much as others, this still has some really touching scenes. Also, every character, just so likable and greatly written. Everybody in the tank was so funny and their chemistry together was so good. Ellen, though she might be a crappy person, put on an amazing performance. Then Marlon and Nemo, so great. I also already mentioned the Tank Gang, but Gil, one of my favorite characters in Pixar. This movie was really sweet, and I've mentioned that a lot of these movies carried my childhood, but unlike Toy Story, unlike Monsters Inc., unlike Cars, this movie did not disappoint. Number 8.
I'm gonna make you wish you never died.
Most people wish that, 22.
Soul. Soul presented a story and rode off of it. This simultaneously gave us an amazing message of appreciating and living every second of life, while also giving us a funny, emotional, touching story. Joe's character and realization of what the true meaning of life is was so perfect. There's probably somebody out there in New York right now who has a similar or identical life to Joe. And I love that. Yes, this movie got a bit shaky towards the end, but it was still enjoyable to watch. It's a movie about appreciating every second of life, and I enjoyed every second of watching it. Number 7.
I get one too sometimes. Alberto, you can't. Alberto, you're gonna die. Alberto, don't put that in your mouth.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Luca. Going into this movie, I wasn't too hyped up. I mean, I was hyped. I've been waiting for this movie for a good bit, but I didn't think that it would be too good. So yeah, my expectations were quite low. I truly thought this movie would just be one of the more forgettable Pixar films that wouldn't even crack the top 10. Boy, was I wrong. The first half of this movie was pretty good, just not as memorable. The second half of this movie, though, was really amazing. Ending was really sweet and touching, and I loved how it played out. Didn't make me cry, didn't make me tear up, but it was one of those moments where I was just like, this is sad. I should be crying right now, but I'm not. But I should be. Anyways, this movie was kind of different than what I've seen Pixar do. This isn't a groundbreaking movie. This isn't a movie with a big message, but this is just a story. Truly just a story, similar to Finding Nemo, and this is the first time that Pixar's done this in a decade. Just making a movie. And I loved it. This is just a story about friendship and a fish out of water tale. Literally. Before I move on, can we just talk about how this dude just bullies children? What? Yo, you can't do that. You just bullying children. What the heck? Sure, fine. I get. Okay, okay. From here on, we get to our top six. I'm saying top six and not top five because I switched around number six through two so many times. Notice that I said six through two because number one is undeniably the best Pixar film. But yeah, number six through two, confusing. They're all such amazing movies. And yes, every movie left is a masterpiece to me. Number six.
The 30 kids!
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Combat Carl's getting played with. You guys in?
Toy Story 4. This movie was all around amazing. From the characters, to the gags, to the writing, to the don't even get me started on the graphics. This movie is beautiful. This truly is the perfect ending to the Toy Story series. Well, Toy Story 3 was the perfect ending, but this isn't that bad either. All the characters in this movie were great. Forky is a really fun character. Woody puts on his best performance yet. Buzz is great per usual. Bo Peep, so cool. And how could you not like Ducky and Bunny? Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele put on an amazing performance, and they are by far my favorite characters. I love how throughout this entire series, they've been drilling in the idea of that all that matters to a toy is making a child happy. In the first one, Woody has to make Andy happy. He realizes that Buzz makes Andy happy, and he has to live with that, because all that matters to him is making Andy happy. In Toy Story 2, he realizes that, yes, all that matters is making a child happy. He wanted to go do something else for himself, but he still cares for his child, Andy. And that's what matters the most. In Toy Story 3, all that matters to him is making Andy happy. And he wants to get back to Andy, while the other toys want to go to the daycare. He finally realizes that it's time to move on, and now his job is to make the next child happy, as in Bonnie. Then in Toy Story 4, they don't completely abandon the idea, but they make a new meaning for toys, a new meaning for Woody. The purpose of a toy is to make a child happy, but the toy has a purpose itself. Woody has to find his purpose, and Woody's purpose isn't to make a child happy, but to make other toys happy. He wasn't made to make a child happy by being a toy. He's a toy that helps other toys find their child. If you look into it, he's been doing it all series. He found Jessie and Bullseye a new home, Barbie and Ken a new home, Gabby a home, really kind of Buzz and Forky a home. His purpose isn't to make a child happy, but his purpose is to find other toys' purposes. The main idea that you've been seeing this entire series was drilled into your head and Woody's head too. And then it's broken in the fourth one. And it was perfect. When Toy Story 4 was announced, everybody was actually really angry because they were scared that it would put a blemish on the name of Toy Story. But I'm so glad that it didn't. And I'm so glad that this movie exists, even if it doesn't really have to. Coco. Out of all the Pixar movies, there weren't too many that I haven't watched before this. One of them that I hadn't watched was Coco. Man, do I regret it. Despite the first half being like an 8, the ending of this movie and that last act was so amazing. Every beat, every moment, every song was so good and so meaningful. Most of all, it was the only Pixar movie that made me cry. Toy Story 3 made me tear up, but Coco made me cry. That last scene means so much to me, and I love how this movie shows the impact that culture, that music, and that family has on life. This movie is beautiful visually, but also with the message it provides. That last scene to me is the best scene in Pixar, if not animation history. This movie just really touched me, and I thought it was so beautiful. Yes, that middle part, bit shaky at some points, but it doesn't matter. This movie was truly brilliant. Number 4. Toy Story 3. This movie is the perfect ending to the Toy Story trilogy. It wasn't, but it should have been. The beginning of this movie was just okay to me, but the rest of the movie was amazing. Lotso is a great villain, the toys are also charming, and I love all the character twists. The story is great, and I think they really got everything right with Andy. Throughout the entire series, Andy was just the kid that was just there. We never really got to see his character as a person, and we never got to really see him. But in this movie, we got to see the family and what they were like and what their future was like. And I really liked that. I loved how they played into Andy's character more than any other movie. That last scene, obviously so good. It made me tear up, and in the past, it's made me cry. I feel like we've all cried at that scene before. And it's not like we were saying goodbye to our beloved characters, but we were watching somebody else say goodbye to their beloved characters. This was so touching since I feel like we've all done this before, and watching somebody else do it really hurt to watch as we saw him and ourselves reminisce about our childhood heroes. Overall, this movie's great, and that ending just tops it off, as I think this is the best movie in the Toy Story series. Number 3. WALL-E. I respect Pixar so much for this movie. This movie was an experiment, and such a big risk for a company as big as Pixar. For a movie to have no words for the first 20 minutes, and just the directors have to hope that the watcher understands what's going on just based off facial expressions and movements and sounds, such a risk and such an interesting idea. I loved it, and they executed it perfectly. It's such a cute and sweet movie that's not just a message to humanity about pollution, but it's a story of love. Watching Wally and Eve, two bots that were programmed to do something, find love and find the meaning of life by themselves, was truly mesmerizing to watch. Also, speaking of finding the meaning of life, seeing the captain do that was so great, and it truly shows that we don't take life for granted. Everything about the story of WALL-E was so beautiful, and I think it deserves every bit of love it gets. Number 2. Ratatouille. This movie was surprisingly incredible. Every single character was so excellently written, and the journey this little rat takes was amazing. Linguini's journey of coming to terms with himself, Remy and the other rats realizing that being a rat doesn't define them, Colette recognizing that truly anyone can cook, Ego coming to terms with this as well, and just everything about this movie was so good. Especially that last act. Man, that last act was amazing. An excellent story, an excellent message, and an excellent ending. This movie was a masterpiece. So if you've been taking off the different movies, you probably know it's first, and it's undoubtedly the best Pixar movie. Number 1.
Honey! What? Where's my super suit?
The Incredibles. I not only think this is the best Pixar movie, but it's a top 3 animation and a top 10, maybe top 5 superhero movie. Don't even argue, it's just facts. Every character so excellently written, and I enjoyed Violet the most. Just her getting out of her shell and embracing her powers, and more importantly, her personality was really fun to watch with her symbolically pulling back her hair. I actually made a 9-page script about this movie and the second one, except I just couldn't make it because it just didn't work out. But like, yeah, that's how much I love this movie. I could keep on going for so long about how much I love this movie, specifically 9 pages long, but we would truly be sitting here forever. If you actually want to see me talk about this movie for much longer, just comment if you want that 9-page script, because I'll make the video. But for now, I'll end it here because this movie is so amazing, and I don't know how to describe it. Just a masterpiece. So after all of that, here's the final ranking. 24th, the worst Pixar movie. Cars 2, an abomination and a blemish on the name of Pixar. 23rd, Brave, a movie completely derailed by the fact that the writers thought it would be too boring, which it wouldn't have been. 22nd, The Good Dinosaur, a movie completely derailed by the fact that the writers forgot to add a story. 21st, Cars 3, a movie that shouldn't exist, but it does because Cars 2 sucked so much. 20th, Monsters University. Why does this movie exist? I don't know, but it was completely carried by its last act. 19th, A Bug's Life. I forgot this movie existed, and so did you. 18th, Onward. In a few years, I'll forget this movie existed, and so will you. 17th, Cars. Wow, this movie is quite overrated. 16th, Up. Nobody remembers what happened in this movie other than that first scene. 15th, Monsters, Inc. This movie was pretty cool, but, you know, pretty overrated. 14th, Toy Story. This movie was really funny. Almost as funny as people who put this movie top 10. 13th, Toy Story 2. This movie isn't the worst in the series, and that's how I'll remember it in the end. 12th, Incredibles 2. An amazing sequel, but why did we have to wait so long, Mr. Bird? 11th, Inside Out. This movie was sad. That's about it. 10th, Finding Dory. This movie is actually really underrated in my opinion, but it just doesn't edge out the first one. Speaking of the first one, 9th, Finding Nemo. A really fun story that doesn't have a message as much as other Pixar movies, but at least it was fun. 8th, Soul. This movie is really touching. Also, Jamie Foxx is like really freaking good at his job. Can we talk about this? 7th, Luca. A movie that literally just came out. It'll probably be forgettable in the end, but I actually enjoyed it. 6th, Toy Story 4. This movie shouldn't exist, but I'm glad it does. 5th, Coco. The only Pixar movie to make me cry, and when I tell you I was a mess, I was a freaking mess. 4th, Toy Story 3. Everything about this movie was pretty freaking great, but Barbie and Ken definitely made me very uncomfy. 3rd, Wall-E. Movies as a whole are classified as art, but if I were to describe any of these films as art, it would be this one. It's a masterpiece. 2nd, Ratatouille. Who knew that a movie about a rat would be so good? 1st, The Incredibles. Come on. This isn't even in question. This is the best Pixar movie. I worked pretty hard on this, so I hope it paid off. So if you enjoyed it, press some buttons down below. Other than the dislike button, don't do that. But press the like button and the subscribe button. Please? Anyways, that's all for me. Peace.